There is a lot that goes into owning a Maserati GranTurismo. This is my 2015 Maserati GranTurismo. It's got about 42,000 miles on it. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about the 5 things that I just hate about this car. If you can get over these 5 things, I would seriously recommend buying them, but these 5 things are tough to get over. Just before we hop in and go for a drive, I'll also talk about, by the way, the expenses and all that, everything that I've spent on this car. But just to cover probably one of the biggest problems, it depends on who you are, if you consider this a problem, but this car gets more attention than almost anything I've driven. And I've driven GT500, C7 Z06s, you name it, I've probably been in it at this point on this channel. But yet this one, for some reason, people just love it. So if you're not somebody that wants people staring at you all the time, this car is not going to be one for you. The amount of people that I've pulled up to gas stations or restaurants, or I actually just went to get my hair cut, and when they see you pull up in this thing, best believe they're gonna ask you what you do for a living. And yeah, people just think that you have an insane amount of money when you own this car, because in reality it is a $150,000 car, but you can get them for 40. That's how much mine costs. And with the top down, of course, I mean, yeah, you get all the eyes on you. So if you're not somebody that likes attention, then this is probably a car you're going to want to steer clear from. With that being said, though, let's talk about the rest of the problems and go for a drive. All right, let's go and take this thing for a drive. And real quick, the second thing that I hate about this car is how outdated the interior is. This is a taste that you have to acquire, but it still is very nice. You got the Maserati stitching, you got the fine Italian leather, Maserati on the door sill, carbon fiber, a Maserati clock, the badging. It's very classy, but every person who steps in this car asks me, what is this? Like, is this from 2007? When you look at the exterior design, it looks like it could be a brand new car. I mean, this thing could have been designed in 2024, and that's what you would guess with how beautiful this car is. But you hop in the interior and you're like, wait, is this a 2007? This has to be one of the last cars to keep a number pad in the interior. So, whatever, let's start it up. That never gets old, I can tell you that. But yeah, absolutely outdated interior, but it is what it is. You learn to love it, and you learn the sort of classiness of the interior. And don't worry, that check engine light will stay on for 50 there. Now it goes. Very weird, like quirky car. There's some things you got to get used to when you hop in this thing. All right, now let's go ahead and go for a drive. And speaking of the interior, while we're on that topic, there are a lot of things that rely on electronics, and you gotta hope they don't break. Opening the door, electronic. There is a manual switch in case that breaks, but that's no fun. Hold on, let's get a quick pull in. Gotta love that. Oh my gosh. The trunk is also electronic. The glove box, unfortunately, already broke on me. So yeah, weird stuff with the interior, and relying on electronics is never fun. Because that's just more stuff that can break. Now, the third thing that I hate about the Maserati GranTurismo, and this one's kind of hard to get over, this is a very limited production car, which means part costs for almost anything on the car are astronomical. There are some components of the Maserati GranTurismo that cost more than parts for some Ferraris. Let that sink in for a second. For example, the soft top, the fabric for the convertible is $3,500 on this car, whereas in I believe it was the Ferrari F430 that I looked up, the fabric, if you were to order a new convertible for that car, is only about $1,500. That makes the cost of this convertible twice as much as a Ferrari F430. That is hard to fathom. Headlights, $1,000 a pop. Taillights, $1,000 a pop. I've seen quotes for an alternator in the thousands. I think it's actually 1,000, but then there's labor, which is a whole different discussion. All shops and of course the dealership themselves, they treat this as an exotic car. They charge the exotic rate. It's dangerous for them to work on if they were to mess something up and have to pay to fix this car. Yeah, that can get real sketchy for people who work on these cars. So, and by the way, it's not just the parts cost and the labor for this. This is overall just going to be a pretty expensive car to own. I can make a video where I go really in detail on every single expense that I've incurred so far in 4 months. Might actually be less than you think though. But gas, you can see here I have 14.3 miles per gallon. Lots of convertible BMWs, very nice. By the way, you get a lot of looks and waves from people in cars that are much more expensive than this. That's, again, a pro and a con, just depending on who you are and how you look at it. It gets a lot of attention. Insurance is going to be incredibly high. Mine's a little over $300 per month. My first quote was $1,000, well, $993 a month to be exact. Oh my gosh, those pops. Yeah, this is going to be one of the most expensive cars you can insure because they still look at it as if, you know, it was a $150,000 car, but I got it for $41,700. Now, of course, there's the more common things like brake pads, which, by the way, I ordered mine off Amazon for $120 and did it myself in less than an hour. So if you take it to the dealership, yeah, you could easily go into the thousands with a brake job. I didn't need new rotors or anything, just the pads, and easy to find aftermarket pads. It's just you can't find aftermarket support for a lot of this stuff in the engine bay. Sorry, I like to stop talking every time that engine note comes on. Tires, I mean, you know, this thing will burn through tires if you like to drive how I like to drive. I bought this car when it had new tires put on it, so I haven't had to incur that expense yet. But for what I've seen, I think you know, $400 per tire is going to be a reasonable estimate. Probably looking at new tires every like 15, maybe 15,000 miles. Oil change is going to be around every 5,000 miles. It is you know, this is definitely more of a higher maintenance car. But yeah, when you add all those things up together, you know, you're going to replace tires more commonly. Brake pads, probably about the same. It is a heavier vehicle to stop, but you know, nothing too crazy. Oil change, you're going to want to stay on top of that. And then if anything unexpected does happen, it's going to be expensive to fix. So, yeah, it's going to be on par with a Ferrari, but people think that this car is going to break down everywhere you go. On that note, let me just do another poll. It is not going to be as unreliable as people on the internet say. It seems to me that people who own Maseratis, specifically the GranTurismo, I know there's pretty common issues with Quattroportes and Ghiblis, but GranTurismo owners, they love their car. And people who don't own this, they hate on it. I don't understand it. It's like you're a hater until you own it, and then you absolutely love it, for obvious reasons. How can you ever get tired of that? And just, by the way, guys, this car is right on the border of quick and fast. I have driven loads of 500, 600, 700 horsepower cars, and I can tell you right now, this thing is more than enough for roads. This is, for me personally, I think this is absolutely perfect. You can get yourself into some serious trouble, but it still allows you to run through a couple of gears and enjoy the car. So no, this car is certainly not slow, but if you are somebody that has a strong need for speed, you could throw that into the category of things you may not like that much about this car. Because it's not gonna scare the crap out of you. There's a cop right there. But it lets you enjoy it, and you can get up to 100 miles an hour, no problem, pretty dang quickly. So yeah, take that for what it is. I mean, we're up to 50 miles an hour. I wasn't even flooring it. It does happen a lot quicker than it may look on the video. And it does push you back in your seat. Again, you're just not gonna be like scared or like screaming from the G-forces you're gonna experience. Now, number 4 for the 5 things I hate about the Maserati GranTurismo is going to be the common problems. Every car has some issues. There is no perfect car. Well, actually, maybe there is. So on the Maserati GranTurismo, if you get the 4.7, you can almost guarantee that you're gonna end up having a leaky valve cover gasket. And for parts, by the way, it's actually just like a rubber seal and a couple other things that cost literally nothing. The problem is if you take it into a shop, they're gonna charge you around $1,500 to $2,000 for labor. If you do it yourself, it's not the easiest job. It's taken, from what I've seen, pretty experienced mechanics, 5-6 hours to get that done. Probably need the help of a couple of friends as well to make it a little easier on yourself. That is a known problem that you can just plan on having that issue come up for yourself. And if you get the 4.2, which I would just avoid entirely, it can have a really rough rattle on cold starts, and once that starts happening, it's gonna be, well, you're not gonna want to know the quote to fix that problem. A couple of other things are you can run into electrical issues. The battery is really not the best. Just over my 4 months of ownership so far, I've had a couple of weird electrical things happen, such as turning the car on, but the gauge cluster doesn't work. Another time I turned it on and then it popped up a bunch of warning lights. But each and every time that happens, it's only happened like twice. I just restart the car and everything goes away. It's back to normal. So if that's all I have to overcome, I have absolutely, there's nothing, I really don't care. That's not a big deal to me at all. And then suspension issues, I've heard those can be pretty common. You know, as long as you don't abuse it, you're not hitting potholes all the time, it shouldn't really come up as a big issue. I don't know how this car was treated in the past personally. It's had 5 owners and it still runs pretty dang good, which is kind of a green flag about buying one of these if you ask me. But I've noticed that going over any potholes, it does not feel right. So yeah, that leads me on to the 5th thing that I hate about this car. You're literally driving a work of art. Like, I almost feel guilty abusing this thing, flooring it everywhere I go, because it feels like it's just meant to sit in a museum, but that's not why I bought this car. I bought it to drive it. I bought it to share the experience with other people. And when I say I've shared it, trust me, I have. One guy, he was a dad, and his little kid came up to me, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like, what car is that?" Obviously, he was doing that for his kid. I offered to give his kid a ride, and their faces lit up, and I gave them the full experience in this car, trust me. It's moments like that, you know, getting asked to rev it at gas stations, getting asked at places where I pull up to, like, that is a beautiful car, you know, like, how do you afford this? What do you do for a living? And I work in sales. I'll make a full video on how I got the income that I did and really go more in depth. Well, there's another thing that I hate. Whenever I come up to a stoplight, the parking sensor starts spazzing out. But if you just tap the parking sensor button, you'll be fine. Yeah, it gets up to speed. Yeah, you could get a lot of trouble on this thing. And with that, by the way, if you're wondering why the parking sensor does that, this car is pretty close to the ground, so if you're kind of at a decline slant, it senses the road as a nearby object. You know, being low to the ground, it makes the car look super cool, but I guess you could throw that into the category of things that kind of suck about owning this car. Speed bumps are sketch. I've actually already bottomed out my car twice. Not in like a bad way, but I should have been a little bit more cautious going over 2 speed bumps that I did. Probably one of the best things about this car is Maserati as a brand name. Generally, well, to non-car people, it's on par with Lamborghini and Ferrari. But for people who really know cars, we know how much they depreciate. Now, again, that's a category that you can put in either good or bad. I put it in the good category because I got this thing for a $110,000 discount. If you buy one of these new, you are absolutely screwed. But this car, the GranTurismo, I don't think it deserves to depreciate like the Ghibli and the Quattroporte. I think it's mainly because this brand name is associated with it. This is genuinely an awesome, awesome car. More reliable than the other models, but because it's still a Maserati, it's going to depreciate. If you are looking at buying one of these things, I would argue, again, if you can get over all those problems, this is going to be the absolute best car for the $30,000 to $40,000 price range. And if I were you, I would get a nice one. I would get one in your favorite color. I love the convertible in this thing. I mean, it just completes it for me. It brings you so much closer to that sound, but maybe you're not a convertible person. Totally up to you. But trust me, if you're going to get one, get the one you want. Never gets old. This engine and transmission are proven to be quite reliable. It's a Ferrari-derived block, and then this has the ZF automatic transmission, which requires almost no maintenance. So, I mean, all in all, guys, I think the pros of this car seriously outweigh the cons. If you're wondering how much this thing costs to keep running on a yearly basis, I have seen people who meticulously maintain their cars go up to around $12,000 per year, but a conservative estimate on average seems to be around $5,000 to $6,000, maybe $7,000 a year, and that includes insurance, maintenance, I believe gas as well, which is going to be, I mean, the majority of that. So, guys, this is a fantastic car. If you're looking for your first exotic car, I mean, I would definitely do it. And of course, I'll keep you guys updated on how the ownership experience of this goes. But, I mean, yeah, that's everything I hate about it. Parts costs, interior, the attention it gets, the amount of things that could break. But yeah, I mean, guys, that sound. 8 out of 10 car, at least for $40,000. It has its cons, but like I said, the pros are just, it makes sense to buy this thing. I appreciate you all for watching. If you have any questions about owning one of these, let me know, and I will see you in the next video.